Step away from the machine. Officer Grant Miller said it before Maya Whitfield could even press the button for a receipt. The words struck the glass vestibule harder than they should have, sharp enough to make the little room feel smaller. It was just after 9 on a Thursday night in downtown Atlanta, the kind of hour when office towers still glowed above empty sidewalks, and the bank lobby had already gone dark behind locked doors. Only the automatic teller machine remained awake, humming under a wash of cold blue light. Maya stood in front of it wearing a gray trench coat, a white blouse, low black heels, and the quiet exhaustion of a woman who had spent the entire day moving from courthouse hallways to community meetings without sitting down long enough to finish lunch. Her hair was pinned neatly at the back of her head. Her purse hung from her shoulder. Her bank card was still halfway between her fingers and the slot when the screen displayed her balance, just over $3 million. She had not meant for anyone to see it. She had only wanted to withdraw $200 for her mother, who still liked to keep cash in her church purse every Sunday. But outside the vestibule, Officer Miller had parked his patrol car at the curb, and through the clear glass door he had seen the number glow across the screen. Now he stood inside with one hand resting near his belt, not touching anything, not raising his voice, but filling the space with the authority of a man who believed suspicion could become fact if spoken firmly enough. "Whose card are you using?" he asked. Maya turned slowly, careful with every movement because she knew how quickly calm black hands could be described as something else in the wrong report. "It is my card," she said. Her voice was low, steady, almost tired. Miller glanced at the screen again, then at her face, then at the purse on her shoulder. His expression did not show surprise anymore. It showed a decision already looking for language. "That is an unusual balance for a late-night cash withdrawal," he said. Maya looked past him, through the glass, at the patrol lights reflecting red and blue against the marble wall of the bank entrance. A couple walking a dog had slowed near the corner. A security camera blinked above the ceiling tile. Somewhere behind the locked inner doors, a cleaning cart rolled faintly over tile. "A bank balance is not a crime," Maya said. Miller smiled without warmth. "I did not say it was." But he did not step aside. He asked for her identification, her phone, and the card in her hand. Maya opened her wallet and removed her state identification, holding it where he could read it without taking anything else. She kept the bank card between her fingers. "You may look at my identification," she said, "but you do not have legal cause to take my property." The officer's jaw tightened. It was the first honest thing his face had done. "Ma'am, this looks like possible financial fraud." Maya felt the old familiar chill move through her, colder than the air conditioning blowing from the ceiling vent. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The kind her father had warned her about when she was young, when he told her that some people would see her skin before they saw her name, her work, her truth, or the law standing quietly behind her. Miller looked at the machine again, at the impossible number he did not believe belonged to her, and took one step closer. "Make this easy," he said. Maya's eyes stayed on his badge, then lifted to his face. "Officer, the law is already easy," she replied. "You are the one making it something else." Maya had spent most of her life learning how to stand still when the world expected her to tremble. At 38 years old, she had the kind of calm people often mistook for softness until they heard her speak in a courtroom. She was the elected district attorney for the county, but nothing about her that night announced it to Officer Miller. No cameras followed her. No aides stood beside her. No polished press conference lights framed her face. She was simply a black woman in a gray trench coat standing under the cold blue light of an automatic teller machine, holding her own bank card while a police officer decided her money needed an explanation. The $3 million in her account was not a mystery to anyone who had earned it beside her. It came from years of legal work before public office, careful investments made with the discipline her father had taught her, the sale of a small property her grandmother had left behind, and a civil rights settlement she had never spoken about publicly because pain did not need to become a campaign slogan. She lived comfortably, but not loudly. Her apartment was 7 miles from the courthouse, with old hardwood floors, books stacked beside the sofa, and a framed photograph of her parents above the kitchen table. Her mother still clipped grocery coupons out of habit. Her father had been a bus mechanic with hands rough from steel and engine oil, a man who ironed his church shirts on Saturday nights and told his daughter that dignity was not the same thing as permission. When Maya was 12, she watched him pulled aside outside a hardware store because someone thought the receipt in his hand did not belong to him. He had not yelled. He had not begged. He had waited until the truth arrived, then walked home with his jaw tight and his daughter's small hand inside his. That night had taught Maya something no law school professor ever could. Some people do not need evidence to suspect you, but they will demand impossible evidence before they respect you. Years later, she built her career around that wound. She prosecuted violent men, dishonest officials, and fraud cases with the same steady voice. She also dismissed weak charges when officers tried to dress bad assumptions in legal language. Her staff knew she read body camera transcripts line by line. Judges knew she would rather lose fairly than win dirty. Families of victims knew she remembered their names after the cameras left. Still, after 12 hours of work, she had gone to the bank for the simplest reason. Her mother was attending a church fundraiser that weekend and had asked for cash because she did not trust payment apps. Maya had smiled, promised to stop by the automatic teller machine, and told herself she would be home by 9:30. Now the clock above the bank door showed 9:16, and Officer Miller was looking at her state identification as if her name itself had failed to solve the problem he had invented. He read it once, then looked back at her. "Maya Whitfield," he said flatly. There was no recognition in his voice. Her district attorney badge rested in the inside pocket of her purse, close enough to end his performance, but she did not reach for it. Not yet. The law was supposed to protect ordinary people before titles became necessary. So she stood there with the machine humming behind her, the glass door reflecting patrol lights across her face, and waited to see whether Officer Miller would treat a citizen like a citizen when he did not know she was someone powerful. Officer Grant Miller had been a patrol officer for nearly 18 years, long enough to know how to make a command sound like concern. He was 44, broad-shouldered, neat in his dark uniform, with a square jaw, pale eyes, and a habit of speaking slowly when he wanted someone to feel surrounded by rules. Around the precinct, he called himself firm but fair. He liked that phrase because it gave shape to the way he wanted other people to see him. Firm meant he did not back down. Fair meant he could pretend his instincts had nothing to do with who stood in front of him. He worked the downtown financial district most nights by choice. He liked the polished streets, the bank towers, the restaurants with valet stands, the glass doors that reflected his patrol car as if the city itself respected him. He told younger officers that late-night banking always deserved attention, that fraud moved after business hours, that identity theft wore good coats, and carried clean purses. He had watched plenty of people use that same automatic teller machine after dark. Men in suits. White college students laughing too loudly. Older couples leaving dinner. A real estate broker once withdrew cash in front of him while talking on speakerphone about a lake house. Miller had not stepped inside then. He had not asked whose card they were using. He had not called their balances suspicious because he had not imagined those balances as stolen. But when he saw Maya Whitfield standing alone in the vestibule, the blue light on her face and the $3 million figure glowing above the account line, his mind reached for danger before it reached for ordinary explanation. He did not say black woman. He did not need to. His suspicion moved around the words like water finding a crack. He called it a pattern. He called it unusual activity. He called it protecting the bank. The language sounded clean enough to write in a report, and that mattered to him. A report could make a feeling look like procedure if the sentences were arranged correctly. "You are going to need to hand me the card," he said, holding out one gloved hand. Maya did not move. The machine behind her clicked softly, waiting for a response. Outside, the couple with the dog had stopped completely now, pretending not to stare while clearly staring. A rideshare car rolled past, its tires whispering over the wet pavement. "Officer, I have already shown you my identification," Maya said. "You have not identified a crime." Miller's mouth flattened. He looked at her state identification again, then at the card still in her hand. The name matched. The photograph matched. The address was local. Nothing in front of him gave him what he needed, but the absence of proof did not soften him. It only irritated him. He was used to people shrinking when he created pressure. Maya did not shrink. She stood with her shoulders relaxed, her chin level, and her eyes steady, as if the badge on his chest did not make her forget what the Constitution said. That bothered him more than the money. "You are being difficult," he said. "No," Maya replied. "I am being precise." For a second, his polished control cracked. He shifted his weight, glanced toward the security camera, then toward the street, where witnesses were beginning to gather in small, quiet shapes. He understood appearances. He understood how quickly a scene could become a story. So he reached for the safest word he had. "Ma'am," he said, "this is now an investigation." Maya felt the sentence settle between them, heavy and dishonest. He had built the investigation after seeing the balance. Everything else was scaffolding. Behind the locked bank doors, a woman in a navy blazer had paused beside the lobby lights, watching through the glass with recognition slowly widening her eyes. Miller did not notice her yet. He was too focused on turning his doubt into authority. "Put the card down on the ledge," he said. Maya looked at his outstretched hand, then at his body camera, then at the red and blue lights moving across the marble wall. "I will not consent to an unlawful seizure," she said. Miller exhaled through his nose, quiet but sharp. The downtown air outside the glass seemed to tighten with him. He had expected fear, apology, maybe nervous explanation. What he had found instead was a woman who understood every inch of the line he was trying to cross. The woman behind the locked bank doors was Tanya Brooks, a senior client associate who had worked at Peachtree Trust for 11 years and knew the difference between a suspicious transaction and a customer being cornered by someone who had already decided she did not belong. Tanya had stayed late to close a business account file, her navy blazer folded over one arm, her keys in her hand, when she saw the patrol lights ripple across the lobby floor. At first, she thought someone had slipped outside the entrance, or that a car had been stopped near the curb. Then she saw Maya Whitfield through the glass vestibule, standing under the cold blue light beside the automatic teller machine, facing Officer Miller with the stillness of a woman measuring every word before it touched the air. Tanya recognized her immediately. She had seen Maya at a community justice forum 2 months earlier, speaking to mothers who had lost sons to weak investigations and families who had waited too long for someone in power to say their pain mattered. Tanya remembered how Maya had stayed after the event, not for cameras, but to write down names in a small black notebook. Now that same woman was being treated like a fraud suspect because a number on a screen had offended an officer's imagination. Tanya moved toward the inner door and tapped her access card against the reader. The lock clicked. Miller turned sharply at the sound. "Ma'am, stay inside," he said through the glass. Tanya froze with one hand on the door handle. "Officer, I work here. I can verify that she is a client." Miller did not look relieved. He looked annoyed that reality had interrupted his version of events. "This is an active investigation," he said. "Do not interfere." Maya glanced toward Tanya, just once, enough to let her know not to make the scene harder. Then Maya looked back at Miller. "You have a bank employee offering verification," she said. "That would be the reasonable next step." Miller's eyes narrowed. "The reasonable next step is you handing over the card and your phone while I figure out what is going on." "No," Maya said. The word was not loud, but it landed cleanly. Outside, the couple with the dog had started recording. A delivery driver had slowed near the curb. The city moved around them in reflections, headlights, glass towers, wet pavement, red and blue lights swimming across marble. Miller took the refusal personally, though he dressed it as duty. "You are refusing to cooperate with a lawful investigation," I am refusing to consent to a search and seizure that you have not justified, Maya replied. My name matches my identification. The card is mine. The bank employee can verify my status. The camera can verify my conduct. A balance is not probable cause. For the first time, silence opened between them. It was not peace. It was the small pause before someone chooses whether to step back or double down. Miller chose wrong. He reached for his radio and spoke in a clipped voice, each word shaped for other officers who had not seen the beginning. I have a possible financial fraud suspect at Peachtree Trust, refusing lawful commands, requesting backup. Tanya's face changed behind the glass. Maya watched Miller build the record with careful omissions. He had not said the identification matched. He had not said the bank employee offered verification. He had not said his suspicion began when he saw $3 million on a black woman's account screen. He lowered the radio and looked at Maya as if the weight of his badge should finally bend her. Last chance, he said. Put the card down. Maya placed her state identification on the narrow ledge beside the machine, but kept the bank card in her hand. Officer Miller, she said, reading his nameplate clearly. Make sure your report includes the moment you chose not to verify what could be verified. His jaw tightened again. The automatic teller machine timed out behind her with a soft mechanical beep, and the balance disappeared from the screen. But the damage had already been done. The number was gone, yet the thing it revealed remained standing in the vestibule between them. 2 backup officers arrived 4 minutes later, their patrol cars sliding to the curb with soft flashes of red and blue across the bank glass. Officer Miller stepped out of the vestibule to meet them first, and that small movement told Maya everything. He wanted to narrate the scene before anyone else could describe it. She watched through the glass as he pointed once toward the automatic teller machine, once toward her, and spoke with the steady confidence of a man trimming facts into a shape that would protect him. Tanya stood just inside the bank lobby, phone pressed to her ear now, her face tight with worry as she tried to reach her branch manager. She is a verified client, Tanya called through the glass again. Her name matches the account. You can confirm it right now. Miller did not answer her. He opened the vestibule door and stepped back inside with the 2 officers behind him, bringing the cold night air and the smell of wet pavement with them. Ms. Whitfield, he said, you are being detained while we investigate possible financial fraud and obstruction. Maya looked at the body camera on his chest, then at the 2 officers who had not seen the beginning and were already standing as if his version had weight simply because it arrived first. State the specific act that created probable cause, she said. Miller's mouth hardened. You refused a lawful command. A command to surrender my bank card and phone without a warrant, without a fraud alert, without a victim complaint, and without verification from the bank employee standing 10 feet away, Maya said. Her voice stayed even, but every word carried the clean edge of record-keeping. One of the backup officers shifted uncomfortably. The other looked toward Tanya, then toward the security camera above the vestibule. Miller heard the hesitation and moved quickly to close it. Turn around and place your hands behind your back, he said. The couple outside stopped pretending not to film. A delivery driver stood beside his open car door. Tanya's eyes filled with anger, but Maya lifted one hand slightly, not toward the officers, only enough to ask her to stay calm. Maya knew the difference between a bad arrest and a dangerous moment. She also knew that some people survived by making no movement that could be rewritten later. I am not resisting, she said clearly. I do not consent. I want that recorded. The metal cuffs were placed on her wrists with practiced efficiency, cold and impersonal. Miller took the bank card from her fingers and sealed it in a small evidence sleeve as if the plastic itself had confessed. He also took her phone, though she told him again that he had no legal basis to search it. He ignored that part. Outside, the sidewalk had gathered witnesses in quiet clusters. No one shouted. That made it worse. Their silence felt like a room waiting to see what kind of person she would become under pressure. Miller guided her toward the patrol car, careful now that phones were recording, one hand hovering near her elbow without force. "You can explain it downtown," he said. Maya stepped into the back seat and looked through the window at Tanya, who stood behind the bank door with one palm against the glass. The automatic teller machine had gone dark behind them. The $3 million number was gone from the screen, but its shadow followed Maya into the patrol car. As the door closed, the city lights blurred through the glass, and Miller spoke into his radio with the same trimmed version of truth. "Suspect in custody," he said. Maya closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, her reflection looked back from the window, calm, tired, and already building the case he did not know he had just created. Central Precinct smelled like old coffee, floor wax, and paper that had been handled by too many tired hands. Maya felt the change in the air the moment she was walked through the side entrance, away from the public counter, and into the quieter hallway where the fluorescent lights made every face look flatter than it was. Officer Miller moved ahead of her with the bank card and phone sealed in clear plastic sleeves, speaking to the desk officer in a low voice that carried just enough for her to hear the words he wanted heard: possible fraud, failure to cooperate, suspicious balance, late-night withdrawal. He did not mention Tanya Brooks. He did not mention the matching identification. He did not mention the bank employee standing 10 feet away, offering verification before he chose handcuffs over a phone call to the branch manager. Maya listened without correcting him. Not because she accepted it, but because she had spent years teaching young prosecutors that a bad record often reveals itself more clearly when the person making it believes no one powerful is listening. They placed her in a small interview room with beige walls, a metal table, 3 chairs, and a camera mounted in the upper corner. The room was too cold. A white clock ticked above the door with a dry little sound, second after second, as if time itself were being entered into evidence. The cuffs had been removed, but the faint red lines on her wrists remained, narrow and neat against her skin. Maya looked down at them once, then folded her hands on the table. She would not rub the marks. She would not give the camera grief it could turn into weakness. Through the half-closed blinds in the door window, she saw Miller outside speaking to another officer. He laughed once, short and dismissive. "Probably got coached," he said. "People learn a few legal phrases online and think that changes what we see." Maya closed her eyes for one breath. In the dark behind her eyelids, she saw her mother at the kitchen table counting offering envelopes for church, her father's hands blackened with engine grease, the hardware store receipt trembling slightly between his fingers while a manager apologized too late. Her mother's voice came back with painful clarity. "Baby, never beg someone to see your humanity. Make them answer for why they refused." When Maya opened her eyes, she looked directly at the interview room camera. "I am requesting my phone call," she said. No one answered. The clock kept ticking. Somewhere down the hall, a printer started and stopped. An officer passed the door with a styrofoam cup and glanced in without curiosity. Maya waited. Her patience was not surrender. It was structure. She counted what needed to be preserved: the automatic teller machine camera, the bank vestibule camera, Tanya's statement, the couple's phone video, the delivery driver, the patrol car location, Miller's radio call, his body camera, the moment the balance appeared, the moment he decided the money was evidence because the woman standing near it was black. Miller entered the room 10 minutes later with a folder that had almost nothing in it. He sat across from her and placed the seized bank card on the table inside its evidence sleeve, as if presenting proof. "This can go easier," he said. Maya looked at the card, then at him. "It already could have," she replied. He leaned back, trying to reclaim the room. "You still have a chance to explain how that money got there." Maya's face did not change. "My finances are not your investigation unless you can identify a lawful basis." "You are not in court," Miller said. "No," Maya said softly. "But you are still bound by the law." The silence after that was quiet enough to hear the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Miller stood, annoyed again, and opened the door. Before he left, Maya spoke with the same calm that had followed her from the bank to the patrol car to this cold little room. "Officer Miller, I am requesting my phone call again. I want that refusal, or that delay, recorded. He paused with his hand on the doorframe. For the first time since the vestibule, something uncertain moved across his face. Then he stepped into the hallway, and Maya remained at the table beneath the white light, not trapped in the way he thought she was, but waiting for the record to begin speaking back. Miller made her wait another 12 minutes before a young officer opened the interview room door and set Maya's phone on the table, still sealed in plastic. "One call," the officer said, not unkindly, as if the phrase itself were a favor instead of a right that had been delayed long enough to matter. Maya looked at the phone, then at the camera in the corner. "Please note the time," she said. The young officer glanced toward the hallway, uncertain, then slid the phone out of the sleeve and placed it in front of her. Maya did not scroll through contacts like a frightened person searching for rescue. She dialed from memory. Assistant District Attorney Claire Bennett answered on the second ring, her voice still alert despite the late hour. "Maya?" Maya kept her eyes on the table. "Claire, I am at Central Precinct. I was detained at Peachtree Trust after an officer saw my automatic teller machine balance and claimed possible financial fraud. I need you to contact Sergeant Alan Pierce immediately. Preserve body camera footage, patrol car footage, dispatch audio, bank vestibule footage, automatic teller machine camera footage, and every report connected to Officer Grant Miller." For the first time that night, the room seemed to change temperature. The young officer near the door looked up sharply. "Down the hallway, someone stopped walking." Claire's voice lowered. "Are you safe?" Maya looked at the faint red marks on her wrists, and then at the beige wall in front of her. "I am in an interview room. Make sure no one edits the record." She ended the call before emotion could enter it. 10 minutes later, the precinct began to move differently. It started with footsteps, faster than before, then a door opening too hard down the hall, then Sergeant Alan Pierce's voice asking a question that carried through the half-open blinds. "Who ran her name?" No one answered quickly enough. Officer Miller's voice followed, defensive but still confident. "She had identification. The account looked suspicious. I had grounds to investigate." "Did you verify with the bank employee on scene?" Pierce asked. Silence. Maya sat still, hands folded, and listened to the sound of a story losing its protection. The door opened. Sergeant Pierce stepped inside, a man in his early 50s with tired eyes and a captain's compressed into a sergeant's uniform. He looked at Maya once, and recognition drained the color from his face. His shoulders straightened. "Madam District Attorney," he said. The words did not echo, but they traveled. Outside the room, Officer Miller went completely still. The young officer at the doorway swallowed. Someone behind the desk whispered, then stopped. Maya did not rise. She did not smile. She let the title sit in the room beside the state identification Miller had treated like an inconvenience. Pierce turned toward the hallway. "Officer Miller, did you arrest the elected district attorney of this county without verifying the bank's offered confirmation?" Miller stepped into view, his polished certainty cracked around the edges. "Sergeant, I did not know who she was." Maya looked at him then, directly, not with anger loud enough to save him from understanding, but with the calm weight of every ordinary person who had never been able to make that sentence matter. "That is the problem," she said. "You should not have needed to know who I was." Another officer appeared behind Pierce and spoke quietly. Tanya Brooks had arrived at the precinct with Luis Ramirez, the bank security guard, carrying after-hours access logs and a statement from the branch manager. Luis had already confirmed that no fraud alert existed on Maya's account, no complaint had been filed, and no alarm had been triggered. The bank cameras showed a lawful customer using her own card. Tanya's written statement said Miller had refused immediate verification. Pierce closed his eyes for half a second, as if measuring the damage before it became paperwork. Then he opened them and looked at Miller. "Secure your body camera file. Do not access it. Do not alter anything. Write your report now, and include every step you took before probable cause existed." Miller's mouth opened, but no useful words came out. Maya stood slowly, smoothing the front of her trench coat. The room was the same beige room. The light was still cold. The clock still ticked above the door. But the balance of power had shifted without a shout, and everyone inside Central Precinct could feel the record turning toward the truth. Sergeant Pierce did not release Maya with an apology first. He released the evidence from the story Officer Miller had tried to build around her. That mattered more. Within minutes, the interview room door remained open, and the hallway outside filled with the quiet movement of people who suddenly understood that every camera, every timestamp, every sentence in every report had become important. Tanya Brooks sat at a desk near the front counter with Luis Ramirez beside her, both giving written statements under the flat white glow of precinct lights. Tanya's hands were still tense around the pen, but her voice did not shake. She wrote that she had identified Maya as a verified client, that she had offered immediate confirmation, and that Officer Miller ordered her not to interfere. Luis provided the security log showing no fraud alert, no blocked account, no emergency notice from the bank, and no reason for any officer to treat the transaction as criminal. Claire Bennett arrived 20 minutes later in a dark blazer over jeans, her hair pulled back too quickly, her face carrying the controlled anger of someone trained to turn outrage into procedure. She did not rush to hug Maya. She looked at her wrists first, then at the camera in the corner, then at Sergeant Pierce. "I want preservation notices sent now," Claire said. Pierce nodded because there was nothing else left to do. Body camera footage was secured. Patrol car video was tagged. Dispatch audio was pulled. The automatic teller machine footage and bank vestibule footage were requested through formal channels. The phone videos from the couple outside and the delivery driver were collected voluntarily. Every piece showed the same clean order of events. Miller saw the balance first, questioned ownership second, refused offered verification third, and created the language of suspicion only after Maya declined to surrender property he had no legal basis to seize. Miller stood near the report room, no longer broad in the uniform that had filled the vestibule so easily. He held a pen over a blank form, but his hand did not move. "I followed my training," he said finally, though the sentence sounded smaller than he intended. Maya was standing now with her trench coat folded over one arm, her recovered phone and bank card placed on the table in front of her. She looked at him the way she looked at weak arguments in court, not with cruelty, but with the patience required to expose them. "Training does not allow you to turn surprise into probable cause," she said. "It does not allow you to ignore verification because the truth is inconvenient. It does not allow you to treat a black woman's lawful money as evidence of a crime because you could not imagine it belonged to her." No one in the hallway spoke. Even the printer seemed to stop between pages. Miller's face tightened, and for a moment he looked less angry than exposed. "I did not know you were the district attorney," he said again, softer this time, as if the title could excuse the treatment. Maya picked up her bank card from the table. The plastic looked ordinary under the fluorescent light. That was the point. "I should have been protected by the law before you knew my title," she said. Sergeant Pierce placed Miller on administrative review pending a full internal investigation and ordered a supplemental report documenting the failure to verify, the seizure of property, the delayed phone call, and the statements from the bank staff. Maya did not celebrate. She did not demand a performance of regret. She simply asked that the record remain complete, because incomplete records were where too many people disappeared. As she walked out of Central Precinct with Claire beside her, Tanya stood near the counter and gave a small nod. Maya returned it with tired warmth. Outside, the night air touched her face, colder and cleaner than the room behind her. The city lights were still shining on glass towers and wet pavement, but now every reflection seemed to carry one quiet fact. The badge had not saved Miller from the truth. The record had saved Maya from his lie. By morning, Atlanta had washed itself in thin gold light, but the night had not left Maya Whitfield's skin. She stood in her apartment kitchen at 6:45, holding a mug of coffee she had forgotten to drink, watching steam rise toward the window while the city moved 7 floors below her. Her gray trench coat hung over the back of a chair, wrinkled from the patrol car and the precinct. On the counter beside her keys sat the bank card Officer Miller had treated like contraband, ordinary plastic under the soft kitchen light, harmless and familiar. Maya turned her wrist slowly. The red lines from the cuffs had faded into faint shadows, but she could still feel the memory of cold metal when she buttoned the sleeves of her dark suit. Her mother called at 7 sharp because mothers hear what daughters try not to say. Maya told her she was all right, then listened to the long silence on the other end of the line. "You should not have had to be all right," her mother said. Maya closed her eyes for one breath. "I know," she answered. At the courthouse, the marble steps were damp from an early street cleaning, and the flags above the entrance moved in a mild morning wind. Officers stood near security as they always did, but this time their posture changed when Maya walked in. Some looked at her title. Some looked at her face. A few looked away too quickly. She did not slow down to make anyone uncomfortable. The point had never been humiliation. The point was the record. Claire Bennett met her outside the district attorney's office carrying a thick folder marked with preservation notices, body camera footage, dispatch audio, bank camera requests, witness statements, and administrative review. Tanya Brooks had sent her signed statement before dawn. Luis Ramirez had sent the access logs. The couple with the dog had uploaded their phone video. The delivery driver had added a short written statement saying Maya had never raised her voice and Officer Miller had refused verification before calling backup. Everything that had been dismissed in the vestibule had become paper, timestamp, image, and sound. Maya took the folder and felt its weight settle into her hands. "Sergeant Pierce confirmed Miller is off street duty during the review," Claire said. Maya nodded. Through the glass wall of her office, the city was waking behind the skyline, cars moving like small silver threads through downtown. She placed the folder on her desk beside a framed photograph of her father in his work shirt, smiling with one hand on the hood of an old bus. For a moment, the room was quiet enough for her to hear the clock above the bookcase. She thought about the people who did not have a title to reveal, a staff to call, a courthouse to walk into the next morning with authority waiting behind the door. She thought about how many records had never been made because someone believed fear more quickly than facts. At 9 o'clock, her first meeting began. Prosecutors, investigators, and victim advocates entered with files in their arms and questions on their faces. Maya looked at them, then at the folder from Central Precinct. "We are reviewing more than one arrest," she said. "We are reviewing the habit that made it feel reasonable." No one spoke for a second. Outside her office, sunlight moved across the seal on the floor until the words District Attorney glowed softly in gold. Maya opened the file, not angry in the way people expected anger to look, not triumphant in the way injustice wanted her to become, but steady. The law had almost been used to shrink her into suspicion. Now the law would have to answer for that attempt. And in the stillness before the first page turned, Maya understood that justice did not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it entered quietly, wearing a dark suit, carrying a complete record, and refusing to let a lie decide who belonged.